Welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the Sun's arrival in the sign of Sagittarius and the beginning of year 2025 Sagittarius season. This begins on November the 22nd at 1:36 AM Universal, goes on through to December the 21st. The sign of Sagittarius is the 9th zodiac sign. It's a fire sign, so very passionate, but it's also mutable, so it's able to flex, which is a wonderful combination and a unique combination. No other zodiac sign has those two characteristics. After the intensity we've been experiencing in recent weeks with Scorpio season, including the new moon we've just had in a conjunction with Mercury in a retrograde and the electric energies of Uranus in opposition, what can we expect over the next 4 weeks? I'm going to share with you some of the themes of Sagittarius, but also I'm going to share on screen the event chart from a zodiacal viewpoint, but also a natal viewpoint, both based on Greenwich, the prime meridian and universal, because I feel we can all collectively relate to that. Because at the exact moment the sun arrives, it's forging other relationships which will make this year's Sagittarius season unique to any other before. I'm also going to share with you the upcoming influences. We have a full moon on the 4th of December, a new moon on the 20th, and they're both impacted by energy in the water sign of Pisces. Fire and water do not conduct well. What's that likely to mean? I'm then going to go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces to give you a flavour of what to look forwards to over the next 4 weeks, which you can relate to in terms of your ascendant, sun or the moon. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. A very warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. If you've yet to subscribe, please help the channel to continue to thrive. We just crashed through the 133k barrier. Let's get to 134. We have found that many people, over 50% who regularly watch my videos, are not subscribers. If that's you, please help it to continue to grow. Also, your comments and likes are truly appreciated. Thank you so much. Year 2026 is racing towards us. Please check out my deep dive video for each of the 12 signs and an overview, a very in-depth overview, by clicking the link beneath this video. Also, my new website at patrickarundell.com continues to evolve. We're really pleased with how it's developing. Please join us. And also you can sign up for your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning. But let's just explore some of the broader themes of Sagittarius season energy. Sagittarius people can be truth seekers, can have a huge appreciation of knowledge, can be very, very wise. They can have a philosophical outlook, but also these are people that don't like to have their style cramped. So anything to do with regularity can be an anathema to archers who want to have a sense of variety. So that definitely comes from the more mutable energy. So whether it's expanding horizons through intellectual pursuits, whether it is more spiritual ones, or it is through physically getting out in the wider world or travel, those are areas that Sagittarius people often thrive with. And the open-mindedness but also optimism that comes from this sign is definitely seeded in its ruler Jupiter. Now, Jupiter currently is located in a water sign of Cancer. It is, however, exalted there, but it is in retrograde. So we just need to be mindful of that. But if you have been feeling that life's been rather heavy, there has been lots of politics, lots of things have been quite challenging, maybe finances have felt a bit choppy, this is certainly a time to think about spontaneity. As the old saying goes, a change is as good as a rest. So what we're being asked to do is to be bolder over this next 4 weeks. But let's have a look at those two event charts. Now, first of all, I'm going to share with you the natal event chart, which you can see has an ascendant at 26 degrees and 41 minutes in Virgo. Virgo, like Sagittarius, is a mutable sign, but it can also be about precision and virtue, so where we refine things and also get some tangible practical outcomes. But if you see on the other side of the heavens is Neptune, and that's in a direct opposition to the ascendant. And that suggests that relationship matters collectively could still be somewhat opaque, rather confusing, and not necessarily very clear for many of us, but also perhaps in terms of the collective energies. If we look at the Sun, however, just into the sign of Sagittarius, it's in house 3, which is about quick communication, can be about short journeys, and of course Sagittarius can be about longer haul trips. So if we are planning to go anywhere, because the position of Virgo is compromised by Neptune, especially if we're traveling with someone else, we need to make sure, especially because Mercury is still in a retrograde, that we do plan things meticulously well. Now, ironically, Jupiter, the dispositor of the sign of Sagittarius, its ruler, is forging a very strong link with the retreating Mercury. And that's a trine which can be good for trade, but they're both in retrograde, so what does that tell us? We may get mixed news. I think finances collectively are going to continue to be somewhat choppy. You can also see that the moon's in Sagittarius and it's not far off the position of Mars. So it's about a 7-degree gap. Now that can create a degree of turbulence. So if we encounter people who have different outlooks, philosophies and ideas, we may want to stand up what we believe in a very passionate way. And that's emphasized by the fact that Mercury in Scorpio is still in an opposition with Uranus, and because they're both in signs which are very much to do with what we're attached to, whether it's our values or our finances, that's a factor. And also the Sun, just to say, is itself also still in an opposition with Uranus. So that opposition with Uranus is pretty close at 35 minutes, and that can push us to really speak out if we feel challenged, and if need be very provocative. So if someone does have a different worldview to us or different value systems, then that can make us much more inclined to go on the front foot. And so we are going to see some flame-ups, I think, over the next few weeks. Not going to necessarily be the most conciliatory time, and because Neptune can confuse things, we need to be sure that our facts are absolutely right if we are going into some kind of debate. But because Sagittarius can be about the need to do things quickly, spontaneously, and in a very varied way, we could want to move very fast. And I think the opposition with Uranus is just saying don't rush any journeys, because that could lead to some mishaps. The other takeout of this chart is the Sun's forging a brilliant sextile to Pluto. Now, Pluto in Aquarius energy does have some commonalities with Sagittarius. Both dislike being contained too much, like to be quite outspoken at times, and can be very idealistic. So the Sun's link to Pluto suggests transformation. That can be at a deeper personal level, but it also can be in our physical circumstances. So if you are encountering some headwinds with the company you're keeping, a relationship you've got, you may find over the next month that connecting to people who really have got simpatico to your ideas, particularly the things that you feel very, very drawn to in terms of your higher purpose, those are the type of individuals and groups that will provide some light relief. And obviously we're coming into the festive season, so if we can get together with people who are a little bit more free-spirited, perhaps even rebellious, that could be a breath of fresh air after all this intensity we've experienced. I'm just showing the event chart from a zodiacal viewpoint, a solar perspective, and that of course puts the posse in Sagittarius, the stellium, all in house 9. So that definitely is wonderful if you're someone who does love to travel, and whether it is going to see relatives over the festive period or it is heading off for the aforementioned sun or snow, that's a lovely set of influences. But I do reiterate my point about Uranus being in the opposition with the Sun. I think Uranus has brought into the open some uncertainties around the long-term financial picture for us all, whether it's interest rates, whether it's the amount of inflation we have, how much the cost of living's going up, whether the things that we consume every day are as affordable as they used to. These are big debates and people are feeling very strident and outspoken about them. So I think we're going to see a lot more sentiment shared, and people will be perhaps pushing back on what the narrative is that's being shared by people who want to essentially guide that, but it is for their own political purposes. So I think a real slug of reality is going to be expressed in a much more outgoing and released way. The other thing that I think is going to come up over the next month is a lot of information that has been kept out of sight. I know there's more and more that's just dripping out. I'm not sure if you've heard of these Sarajevo human safaris, where apparently very rich tourists were flown in to Bosnia, Serbia, and actually were taking shots at civilians. I don't know if this story absolutely stacks up, but it's saying that Alexander Vucic, current president of Serbia, was one of the people involved in this. And this type of thing is going to continue to come to the surface because Saturn and Neptune are right at the end of their journeys. Saturn's very much about consequences. Neptune, of course, is about how information has been shared in a way which could be quite manipulative, because it can be about disguise, smoke streams, distortion and downright lies. And because the sign of Sagittarius is very much truth seeker and very passionate about being a truth seeker, particularly through December, we are going to see a lot more information bubble to the surface, which could prove to be, I think, quite shocking. So those upcoming aspects. Well, the sextile to Pluto is exact on the 23rd, the day after the Sun arrives in Sagittarius. But on the 4th of December, we have the full moon in Gemini. The moon in Gemini is not a happy place for the moon to be because it's peregrine, it doesn't really have a purpose there, has no essential dignities. The sign of Gemini is about air, it's about quick communication. The moon's more about soul energy, how we feel. But the opposition to the Sun in Sagittarius is T-squared by the point of destiny, the North Node in Pisces. And that emotional, spiritual energy is competing with, again, the dialogue, the narrative, put bluntly, the propaganda that's being put out, because we're very much in a post-truth era. It's not what actually has happened that gets shared a lot of the time, it's what we're wanted to be persuaded has happened, and that's something we all need to be quite conscious of. But on the 17th of December, the square between the Sun and Saturn reaches an absolute peak, and that's a real toughie. If we think that the Sun in Sagittarius is very much about freedom, Saturn can be about repression. What's being kept? What's being kept down? Or what are we coming up against in terms of trying to just be more independent in our purpose? And through week 3 of December, they are still broadly in touch, and that takes us to the new moon in Sagittarius of the 20th, which squares up with both Saturn but also with Neptune. So I don't think that's the most positive Sagittarius new moon that we've had in recent times. Our desire to do as we wish, to be more flexing, to do things off the cuff, to get together with lively people who are fun and prepared to just go with the flow, that mutable energy, and are very passionate, that's there. But there may be things that we just need to be conscious of. It could be our inner blockages, it could be our own way that we talk to ourselves. It's our own thinking we may have to challenge. We need to stay resolutely positive, even though we're going through very difficult times as a collective. Please stay with me now as I go through each of the 12 signs. But if you'd like to order your year 2026 personal forecast, totally unique to you, you can do so by clicking the link beneath this video. You also get 30% off the rest of this year 3, your life roadmap report, which helps you to understand your life journey so far, together with the forecast that gives you the information to plot your moves skillfully in the months ahead. And you also get my free gift of your Zodiac and Chinese, Indian and love written Zodiac forecast for year 2026. So Aries, with the arrival of the Sun in Sagittarius this year, Your ruler Mars is laying in wait, but also the moon. What a lively set of energies. If you have been finding that life has been rather challenging of late, and it has felt that a lot of politics has been going on, you have felt a bit drained, maybe stressed out, wouldn't be a surprise at all. Now, because of the energy in the sign of Pisces, which is very sensitive and could see you grappling with issues from your past, it's not quite as easy to say that you should just do something different and be more spontaneous, because you may need to stay in touch with that inner journey, which is feeling quite delicate. That will complete by the middle of February. Of course, for all of us, there may be things from our past we have to continue to work at. But I think broadly you are going to be beginning a new journey in the middle of February. So there is a wind down going on, but as that wind down occurs, now we have an opportunity to change things up a little bit. Move into the moment, be more daring, and show those parts of your nature which are more to do with doing things quickly, boldly, courageously, taking a lead, being very enthusiastic, being very upbeat, motivating other people with your energy. So if you do want to get away with a group of people, whether it's something to do with a vacation or history or culture or the arts, just travelling to somewhere, even if it's another city, to see a museum or a band or a show, can be the type of things, or even to do some Christmas shopping, can be the type of things that can actually be really very, very good for your soul. Why not? Just be aware with Uranus in your second house, the Sun, Mars and the Moon in your ninth, you could find yourself being a bit freer with your expenditure, even if you have set yourself a budget, and you may find yourself being much more impulsive than ordinarily would be the case. However, if you have been going through a situation in a relationship where someone has seemed to be quite elusive, evasive, not really giving you the answers you want, there may be part of you that actually does want to truly break free. And it doesn't have to be in a romantic context. It could be with a friend, could even be in a workplace situation, because this is an opportunity for you to recharge that fire energy, that elemental part of your nature, which gives you a very strong will. So if you don't feel that you're getting the answers or the clarity that's so important, that may also be a feature of the next 4 weeks. So Taurus, the intriguing thing for you is the Sun moving into Sagittarius, joining with Mars and initially with the Moon. That's house 8. House 8 has a scorpionic kind of echo. It's about transformation, but it's also about passion, but passion about diving deeper into situations where you can feel that your energy and thrust will be reciprocated, and it can be very exciting, maybe even transformational. But there's another part of your nature which means that if you feel that you're not getting the rewards financially that you feel you deserve, the next 4 weeks is going to see you determined to improve that. But because you still have energy in your 7th house, the sector of relating, which includes the retreating Mercury and your ruler Venus, delicacy and diplomacy will still be important. So using the steel fist inside the velvet glove is probably quite a good combination for you over these next 4 weeks. But if there is somebody, particularly in your friendship circle, that you're finding rather evocative, maybe all the way to being hard to resist, just be aware with Saturn, Neptune and the North Node in that part of your chart, all going to be challenged through December. So you need to ask yourself, if there is someone that you're finding irresistible, is the politics or how it will be viewed in a friendship circle really worth what the immediate sultry benefits may be? But if you're really enjoying a relationship and it is going well and you have got an opportunity to get even closer, your desire to achieve that is going to be very strong over these next 4 weeks. So Gemini, the arrival of the Sun into Sagittarius, joining up with Mars and also initially the Moon, is very exciting for you if you're wanting to bring a connection into your world in the festive run-up. Mars is going to give you a lot of motivation and is very action orientated. The moon can help you to tune into others, although its close proximity to Mars suggests if a relationship is a bit bumpy at the moment, you may find yourself much more outspoken. But the journey of the Sun through the sign of Sagittarius is also going to see it come into right angles, initially with the North Node, then with Saturn, and then with Neptune, and latterly also Venus moving through Sagittarius in your opposite sign is going to go into a square with Saturn as well. So I think December, if you're in a relationship which is a little bit tentative at the moment, you're not quite sure how it's going to go, there may be a battle for control. Now, I don't mean that it's one person wants to totally get their own way on everything, because most people will check out of a relationship like that. But if there is a little bit of a power dynamic between you and a partner, a colleague, or perhaps a family member, there could be some tussles that lead to the run-up through to the move of the Sun into Capricorn on the 21st of December. But in a more positive context, the energy of the Sun moving through Sagittarius can also be about setting boundaries. And because of the energy that's been going on in your 6th house, that may be around your work. If you have felt that you've given it everything and it's not really being recognised or appreciated, you're determined not to be taken for granted. And in that sense, having the Sun and Mars in the sign of Sagittarius at the same time is very good. But if you are footloose and fancy free, and you do just want to have a merry time, quite understandably, I think you're going to have within your cosmic gift a lot of potential to get people together, reach out to friends and do things. So I think you're going to be very motivated, but initially with your ruler Mercury in a retrograde, there may still be some work or practical issues that do need taking care of, and that of course, as ever with Mercury retrogrades, will require some care and precision. So Cancer, the intriguing thing for you is that the ruler of the sign of Sagittarius is at home with you at the present time. It's in residency, loves being with you, but is in a retrograde. So Jupiter's pushing you to express your soul purpose, because Jupiter also rules the sign of Pisces. In fact, it was the traditional ruler of that sign. It's very much about the spiritual purpose. But the link between Jupiter and Mercury, also in a retrograde in the sign of Scorpio still, is actually very constructive. But you may be rethinking where you demonstrate your talents and flair. And because the arrival of the Sun into the sign of Sagittarius for you is very much about practicalities, your routines. Sagittarius doesn't like routines, but for you it's about routines. And also the Moon and Mars are there too. And if you're feeling that your everyday world is very dull, very monotonous, repetitive, somewhat metronomic, and that doesn't work for you, certainly if you're providing services for people, or you have a line manager who's not very appreciative, or you just find the domestic part of your situation closing in a little bit on you, the energy in Sagittarius is asking you where possible to perhaps reset, get a bit more ordered, especially if you have got guests heading your way over the festive period. But I think at a deeper level, if you're not really enjoying where you provide services, where you have obligations, where you're being very conscientious, if that part of life isn't quite working for you, because the ruler of the sign of Sagittarius, the dispositor, is in your sign, in retrograde, is giving you a once in 12-year chance to reset. But the link to Mercury, I think when it comes to your work, how you earn money, or buy and sell, which can be very much to do with Sagittarius energy, particularly online or perhaps internationally, I think there's an opportunity to think how you can use your philosophies, your beliefs, in a way that gives you some kind of physical and practical structure to your life that you enjoy and earns a living to pay the bills. Those are the things that you're going to be really thinking strongly about over the next few weeks. But it has to be said, through the full moon of the 4th of December, the Sun square with Saturn on the 17th, and also the Sun and squaring with both Neptune and Saturn through the new moon of the 20th, that's quite challenging stuff. So if your situation is really closing in on you, you're just not enjoying it, there's part of you, even if there's something to give up, that may want to release something that just isn't serving your soul purpose. And as a water sign, that's always highly important for you. So Leo, the sun powering into the sign of Sagittarius is truly exciting for you personally. You share the fire triplicity. You also have Mars and the moon in this sign too. And those energies are brilliant if you do want to be more playful, let your charisma burn brightly in the run up to Christmas and have some fun, because I think recently there have been some very sensitive issues coming up, maybe about your home emotional life, maybe to do with your deep past, even to do with the heritage of your life as far as past relatives, your lineage, if you like. If you're someone who's very interested in genealogy, that may have been something you've been grappling with of late. But because Uranus is in the part of your scope to do with your connection to the wider world and can be disruptive, maybe some of those inner worries and challenges, whether it is to do with balance in the work-life demands, something most of us have, I think you're just in the mood for a bit more escapism. So if you have kids and what they do is enjoyable to you, you can support them with concerts and shows, or it is to do with your creative and expressive talents. If you perform, if you love watching shows, bands, all of those things, if you like going to parties and having a good dance, all of those things are really very evocative with this energy in Sagittarius. But if we dive deeper, particularly in a romantic context, because the fifth house can be about marriage, because of the role of, first of all, the North Node, but Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, if you're not quite aligning to someone as you like, or it feels that someone you're close to, even a friend, is a bit too possessive or controlling, or maybe tries to leverage a little bit of guilt in your direction if you want to just go out and have some fun, I think that could cause some tension through December, because there's a part of you that does at times need to just be free, and that's what the principle of the sign of Sagittarius is about. Why is that? It's because the second decan of the sign of Leo is ruled by Jupiter. So you have an appreciation of some of those Sagittarius energies, even though you're a fixed sign and can at times be very much adhered to routines. If there is an opportunity now to just shake things up a bit and be much more random, go for it. So Virgo, the energy of Sagittarius for you is very much about home. The sun moving here is brilliant if you have got some last minute changes you want to make, if you've got folks coming to visit. Mars being in residence too will certainly give you a lot of thrust if there is a little bit of a lag between the plan you had and actually fulfilling it. But we still have your ruler Mercury in a retrograde, but it is forging a brilliant link to Jupiter in your sector of friendship. And Mercury is in the third house of your situation. But I think you're going to find that when it comes to, obviously, the social world that unfolds at this time of year, you will be gravitating, I think, most of all towards people that you know very well, those trusted citizens, not so much the flamboyant people. I think you want to know where you stand with people at the moment. And because I think you could be feeling much more sensitive about relationships in general, because the fourth house is not just about where we live, it's not just about the family, it's not just about our environment, it's about our inner world. And that's what the sun's asking you to work on over the next 4 weeks. But Mars in the fourth house can actually resist that. It can be prideful, defensive, niggly, a bit triggered if anyone asks a question. And just be conscious of that, because as the sun makes its way into December, it is going to be coming into conflict. First of all with the North Node, then with Saturn, and then with Neptune. And that's also going to influence the new moon of the 20th. So December could be quite complex. If you're in a relationship where you don't feel the other person's very nurturing, supportive, expects you to do everything, whether it's with the Christmas planning, with the children, with the present buying, that could create a lot of resentment. But because Saturn is in your 7th house, it can also give you strength, because over the last couple of years Saturn may have removed from your world some people who weren't right for you. You may have had to be firmer. You may not have enjoyed it 1 minute. And of course, we've had the eclipse series across your sign and Pisces as well. So relationships have been quite complex for you. And as you come into Christmas, I think what you're really looking for is to connect with people that you can feel safe with. And there's nothing wrong with that. But just know, as December goes on, things will get a lot more flamboyant and playful for you. So Libra, your Sagittarius season this year really explodes into life because of Mars and the Moon being in Sagittarius, waiting to receive the Sun. So you're going to see a pickup in the pace of things. There's going to be lots of messages pinging backwards and forwards. You yourself may feel more restless. You want to be physically on the move. It's really exciting. But what about your ruler Venus? Well, that is still in your second house, which is a very strong position for Venus to be in terms of your sun sign, even if in the technical astrological sense Venus in Scorpio is detrimented. So that's good. You also have Jupiter right at the top of your chart, the ruler of the sign of Sagittarius, influencing your professional situation. So there could be a lot of communications around that. And Jupiter and Mercury, the planet to talk and for, are also connecting in a constructive way despite their respective retrogrades. So I feel that there could be dialogue or part of the discussion or the conversation, the third house energy, maybe about work, maybe about money. But as you go into December, you could find yourself feeling a bit squeezed. We all know that December particularly can be a challenging month. We're spinning lots of different celestial plates. It's hard not to drop them, whether it's kids, work, buying presents, getting the home ready, planning things, last minute changes of plan, family politics, all that stuff. It's a complex old period. And one of the things I would advise you to do through this particular Sagittarius season is actually don't try to be too conscientious as far as other people are concerned. Let things flex a bit, let things flow, but also know what you won't agree to, because you could find that someone's going to be quite pernickety and may try to use a little bit of manipulation in order to get their way. Neptune in the sign of Pisces for you, the practicalities, the sixth house. But as you go further into December, if you are looking forward to a bit more of a peaceful and quiet and nurturing time, it is in prospect. But I think you should buckle up because it's going to be very busy for you over the next 4 weeks. So Scorpio, the sun makes its way out of your sign into Sagittarius, joining up with your traditional ruler Mars and the sensitive energies of the moon. If you've really been working very, very hard over recent weeks on something that you're very passionate about as an individual, I think you could start to see the rewards, or at least the foundations build up of that hard work, especially if you're a creative. Now, the second house can also be where we enjoy life's goodies. If you have been on a diet, it may be hard to stick to that. I know the festive period is always a time when we're tempting to perhaps eat and drink things we wouldn't ordinarily do. So that seems to make sense. But it's really because of the energy in your fifth house, Saturn, Neptune and the North Node, because they're much more about getting into the spirit of things, perhaps reluctantly in the case of Saturn, and you may find yourself wanting to do your best for others as far as purchasing gifts, but if you've got a set budget, I wouldn't veer too much from that, because you could end up actually not feeling that appreciated, and the impact on your bank balance may just make it not so enjoyable as you would hope. Now, you still do, of course, have Venus and the retreating Mercury in your sign. Very, very important. And the energy of them suggests there may be something that's still very close to your heart when it comes to your individual needs. If you do get to know someone in the next few weeks, perhaps unsurprisingly, if you share some good food, or it does get seriously sensual, that's a lovely thing to think of. But just be conscious of Saturn in the fifth house. I hope I don't sound too much like Scrooge. I don't mean to be, but Saturn in the fifth house has certainly provided some challenges over the last couple of years. So your playfulness, especially when it comes to excess, It's probably best modulated to some level that doesn't leave too much of a lasting impact thereafter. But with the ruler of the sign of Sagittarius in your fellow water sign of Cancer, the 9th house for you, if you do want to get away from it all at some point over the next month, even if it is just heading off to somewhere different to enjoy a meal, perhaps spending time with someone close to you by visiting somewhere, having a day out, that actually could be something that helps you to surf this Sagittarius energy really well. Now, the other thing with Sagittarius is it can be very open-minded to different ideas, and because you have still got that creative combination of Venus and Mercury, Mercury can be about commerce, Venus about money in your sign. That could see you tempted towards speculation that's a little different, because Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, always makes it quite open-minded. But again, Saturn is in part of your situation to do with risk. So I think when it comes to money on presents, entrepreneurship, or just managing your budget, steady Eddie as it goes, a 2 of coins approach through the tarot, making sure that things are very even and balanced, is probably the best approach. So Sagittarius, it's wonderful that the Sun returns to your sign after an 11-month hiatus, because recently there's been such a lot of intense, very sensitive psychological energy that's probably made you feel quite on edge, quite run down, maybe a little stressed out. If you found it more difficult to sleep with Uranus in opposition, not a surprise. So the Sun returning to your sign is going to bring you into the moment, and that's going to help you to have more conviction. Mars and the Moon are waiting for you, so that's a great asset. You do still have Uranus opposite, however, when this particular Sagittarius season begins. So your connections to others can still be somewhat changeable and surprising. But the link to Pluto is very, very positive. So if you have been finding that you become much more conscious of who your fair weather friends are of late, or there's been a lot of office politics, or something's come to a close around a relationship with Venus and Mercury in your 12th house, or very delicate influences, I think you could find that that part of you that can be so redoubtable, you will move into the moment, dust yourself down, want to go again, and try and take a step forwards from some of the challenges that have shown up, particularly over the last week. But just be aware that Saturn and Neptune, but also the North Node, are still in the part of your chart to do with home and family. And of course, Christmas period often features those. And because the energy in your sign can bring out that part of you that wants to take charge, wants to do things on your terms, quite rightly, but there may be a little bit of give and take required, particularly in December, which can be quite complex. And the reason is the full moon on the 4th of December in your opposite sign of Gemini, that usually tends to bring into the open someone who may see things very differently to you, may think that you're being a bit too single-minded, but that's T-squared by the nodal axis. Some kind of emotional issue that you're not quite sure of or aware of could come into the open over the following 2 weeks. The new moon of the 20th in your sign is always a great opportunity to perhaps give yourself some kind of glamorous makeover and just feel much more in your identity, which is a very good thing to recharge that for the following month. But once more, that's inhibited by the dreamy drifting energies of Neptune and the more limiting vibe of Saturn. Whether it's someone close to you in your family, whether it's someone in your immediate environment, whether it's where you live or someone you share your home with, such as a flatmate, you may just not find it quite as easy to express your individuality on this year's particular Sagittarius season. But that doesn't mean to say you shouldn't try, and the link to Pluto suggests if you're really convinced of your life direction and your ideas, keep going, and just know that if not everybody gets that, sometimes there is a little bit of collateral in terms of being totally in touch with our unique personality, and that personality is your chance now over the next 4 weeks to have the confidence and conviction to do what works for you on your terms. So Capricorn, the Sun's moved into the part of your situation along with Mars and the Moon, the 12th house, which is really to do with reflection. But you've still got sociable energies in the 11th house, Mercury, Venus, and you have Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, in your sector of relating. So there could still be some very positive sparks and bright spots as you connect to others. But I think this is a part of the year generally where you do need to perhaps just throttle down a little bit and do some deep reflection. Now that could see you looking back over the last year and doing your annual review. You may find that your physical vitality is a bit lower. You may find that some old politics or hurts from the past start to come up to the surface, particularly with Mars in residency. And as we go into December, it is quite complex. I feel that Saturn, your ruler, Neptune, which can be dreamy and drifty, Saturn can be limiting, and the North Node, very much about almost where we're pulled, they're around your ideas or your connections to neighbours, people in your locality. If there are people around you that you don't really get, you can become much more conscious, even in an unspoken way, because your psychological antenna is going to be so much more highly tuned as you make your way into the month. But just know that Mars is going to power into your sign in the middle of December, and that will start to bring a different shift, and the latter part of December will be really exciting for you. So if you do find yourself feeling very sentimental or nostalgic, or perhaps a little sad, or you want to release what's no longer working for you, just take it in your stride, because more dynamic things are coming before the end of 2025. So Aquarius, the arrival of the Sun into Sagittarius is really exciting for you, because the 11th house has an echo of the energy of your sign. It can be our higher purpose, it can be to do with our idealism, our network, our friendship, our group alliances, even the teams we support in terms of sport. Sagittarius, like you, has that freedom-loving, independent vibe, can be forthright, but you're going to find yourself wanting to connect with people a lot. I think there's been a lot of energy permeating around your worldly responsibilities or your worldly connection and role. And that's not at an end, to be honest, because Venus and Mercury are still in that area. And if you are talking about a job or connecting with a new organisation, your ability as a team player is going to be just as important to them as the unique qualities you have too. And you have quite a gift for actually blending those two areas together, perhaps in a way that other zodiac signs don't always have. So that's really exciting. What's not to like, we could say, but your modern ruler Uranus does cause initial mischief because it's in the 4th house, and that's around home and emotions, and maybe your need for space at times and to just detach a little bit could inhibit some of the opportunities for social connection. And then your more traditional ruler, Saturn, is there to provide mischief as you go into December. First of all, squaring off with Mars in Sagittarius, then it's going to be in a square with the Sun on the 17th, but also influencing along with Neptune, the new moon of the 20th. And if there are people that you connect to that have very different values to you, that could be a sticking point, even if you really like them. So the 2nd house, where Saturn, Neptune and the North Node are, is the foundations of your world, but it can be to do with those values. It can also be to do with money, and if you encounter someone who tends to take your resources or generosity for granted, that's not going to be something you're going to enjoy. But if you can connect to people, particularly with the Sun linking to Pluto in Aquarius almost straight away on the 23rd of November, in a very transformational way, if you can connect to people where you have that shared purpose, there is a simpatico between you and others, and it's really meaningful. Those kind of relationships can become very important to you in the weeks ahead. So Pisces, the Sun moves into the most prominent part of your chart, the 10th house. It's also forging a link to Pluto almost straight away. Pluto's in your 12th house. You've got talents, skills, capabilities, but also deep resources that you may not be quite as conscious of as you could be. What can happen with that combination over the next month is you can find yourself in demand, raising your profile. People become much more conscious of the deep qualities you have, and that's really exciting. We also need to be conscious of your ruler Jupiter, because it too rules the sign of Sagittarius. For you, it's in a very playful area, and that can help you to express your flair, often one of your great gifts. But it is still in a link with Mercury in Scorpio in its retrograde too. So what I would say to you is that even if you are discussing some kind of business or job opportunities in the run up to Christmas, the timing may not be necessarily ideal. It could be quite a fluid process. It might not fall into place in one giant stride. So patience will be necessary. Then the other thing that you could encounter, that as much as you're being pushed to celebrate and broadcast your talents to a wider audience, particularly with the help of Mars in the sign of Sagittarius, there may be part of you that actually is a little reluctant to seize the moment. That could be to do with some of your self-talk. It may be to do with some of the conditioning that was put into you when you were younger. If there is any lack of confidence or inhibition about just how brilliant you are, you may have to push, particularly in December, to get through that. But just know, from the middle of December, Mars, the planet of passion and thrust, moves into a friendly part of your chart. And if you can just work on collaboration and think about how you can help people, because that's something you have a gift for, and don't see it as a burden to necessarily have more responsibility and obligations, that's going to help to soothe your path. But the other thing that might come up is a little bit of a power dynamic, to be honest, Pisces. Maybe to do with someone close to you. If you're feeling that you always have to be the one who takes the lead, that can be frustrating for you. You may not want to be in that role at all. It could be a reluctant teenager. It may be a parent that's very stuck in their ways. Maybe a sibling that to you always needs to get their own way. And I feel with Mars being at the top of your chart as the Sun ARIES, there is going to be a part of you that's activated that could be a lot more assertive. But if it is, and you use it, don't beat yourself up about it. Sometimes it's good to let people know, because you are a giver, but there is a need to also protect your interests. And sometimes when we give too much, people just don't recognize or appreciate it.